Off camera, you had mentioned that you thought maybe it was possible your parents were both narcissists, which I think would definitely play a big role in the way that they treated you and the way they exerted power over you and wanted complete control. Would you be able to speak to that? Because I know a lot of people watching have been so curious and anxious about hearing from someone who grew up in what we could call the narcissism cult. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think the word narcissism is definitely thrown around a lot, especially with TikTok. And I've seen very commonly the word narcissism and gaslighting used interchangeably or used incorrectly. So I do want to be very specific in what I'm saying. The only reason that I am 99% sure that both of my parents are narcissists is during my time in therapy, and this is something that's actively part of my life. But my therapist was asking me questions about my parents, like, did they do this? Were these things happening on a consistent basis? And according to her evaluation, she said, they're not sitting in front of me, so I can't tell you and diagnose them. But from everything you are saying, they are the textbook narcissists. I think it's really hard because a lot of times when you are growing up in these narcissistic environments, from the outside, these people look amazing. They have the right type of speech, they're raising their children right, whatever that means. Their kids don't disrespect them. A lot of times they are in religious organizations, and I think they flock to them because it gives them a sense of self-esteem and power. Yeah. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is narcissism isn't really the sense of self-love. It's actually quite the opposite. Someone who hates themselves so much, has so much hate and bitterness in their heart, they are so terrified that the rest of the world will perceive them that way. They will do anything and everything possible to make themselves look perfect. And I think it flips back and forth. Sometimes the narcissist may have other conditions as well, where one day they may think they're God and they're elevated and they're like, no one can look down on me. No one can tell me any different. But then later on, it's like so much shame and, oh, well, they're going to see that I'm just bluffing. Or I think there's a lot of confusion with what narcissism actually is. Some people think it's just, you take a lot of selfies, or, you're obsessed with yourself, which can play a part into that. But a lot of it is self-hatred. They just hate themselves so much. And it's this fear that someone's going to find me out for who I am and for who I perceive myself to be. And so there's so much cover up, and they'll do anything and everything possible so everyone on the outside will think that they appear to be this godlike image or this perfect image, and no one's going to question their cover. So it's a lot of insecurity from the inside, and it's a projection of that. I hear people who have survived these types of things say things like, when I was a kid, my mom would just call up our relatives and say these horrible things about us, which my mom would do. She would Skype call people in the US and be like, oh, she's just so defiant this week. I don't know why she doesn't want to dress modestly or appropriately. It's like she wants attention. I mean, she is a teenager, so she probably wants boys to look at her. And I would hear her say these things and feel awful. Yeah. It's like slut shaming from my own mother. Yeah. So, and I hear these commonalities, but what's happening is that narcissist or that narcissistic parent is so terrified that other people will think they're a bad parent. They have to make up stories about their own children, so that way people will think that they're not the problem.
Right.
So there is that. And then you add religion into the mix, where they now have to appear to be these godly, very spiritual people. That's a whole other slew of problems now, because they have to convince other people in authority who are probably doing the same thing, right? That they are somehow in tune with God and very spiritual and doing everything by the book and accordingly, and they would never sin. And I think that's also another reason why addiction is so rampant in these types of families, whether it's, substance abuse, or there was addiction even in my home that was covered up so much. But they used religion to make themselves look like they had no problems at all.
Yeah.
They would condemn other people who had any type of substance abuse or any type of addiction because they were the bad people, were perfect. Mm-hmm. It's a very confusing, but very, very sad, if you look at the core of it, type of person that lives this way. Because truly they hate themselves. It's just sad. Yeah.
And they take it out on other people, especially their kids, mm-hmm. because they're easy targets. And is it true? What I've heard about narcissism specifically is that they thrive off the attention of others. And when that attention starts to wane, they have to figure out ways to get that person back. But then they'll slowly give that person less and less attention to make the other person want them more. So it's kind of like they thrive off people needing them or seeking them. Do you find that true with your parents at all?
Oh, definitely. I would see that with the way they treated my siblings. So one day my sister would be perfect, and the next day it would be my brother, and then it would be back and forth, and it would make one of them jealous and make them feel bad. And something commonly used with narcissistic families is the term scapegoat. Mm-hmm. So I was the scapegoat of the family. I was the one that would grow up to be a whore or a prostitute, and probably on drugs somewhere. I was told that as imagine being told that as a 9-year-old kid, like, you're going to be a whore. But yeah, I was the scapegoat of the family. And depending on the day, my sister or my brother would be the golden child. So they didn't really get to know each other very well growing up. But my sister and I fought all the time. And it wasn't really, a sibling rivalry is normal. Like, I can't stand you one day. You have your stuff. You stole my shirt again.
Yeah.
That's normal sibling behavior. But for us, it was a whole other level of, will mom and dad love me today? And if they don't, I'm going to screw up your life. And I'm going to make you look so bad because I need mom and dad to love me. So it was this constant animosity between me and my sister. We're best friends now.
That's good.
And we've talked about this actually. We're like, why did we hate each other so much? And well, look who the culprit was. But it's this constant tug of war between who's going to love me. And so you as the victim are like, are they going to love me today? Or are they going to accept me today? And you feel like you're not going to be good enough without their acceptance. And then on their side, it's like this power pull of, I can control anyone I want to by making them feel inferior if they don't have my blessing, approval, or affection. So it's really sad, but I do see that.
Yeah. So I'd like to get into, if you're comfortable with it, you have a whole platform that focuses around this, but I know it's a delicate topic. The way in which your mom abused you and the way that she used you to get what she wanted. And so in whatever way you're comfortable with, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, of course. So my family had a really big focus and emphasis on instruments. So anytime we would come back to the U.S. to visit our sponsoring churches, it was pretty much custom that we would perform for them, instruments, music, singing, whatever it is. And so it was a standard in our home that we had to learn how to play instruments and do it well to impress these churches. So that was a given. I started learning how to play chopsticks on the piano probably at 3 or 4 years old. And then it progressed from there to, you have to learn something. I remember practicing the piano anywhere from 3 to 4 hours a day, but then only spending like 30 minutes reading a book for education during the day. So you can see what was more important in our family. And when we started started renting the building from the military church off base, there was a couple that came to our church. And I want to be very careful with how I say this. The couple had some red flags, one being that they had a son, but were not allowed to be with him. And I know things can happen, but they had left their home country and were not allowed to return and were not allowed to be with their child. There's some questions there. You know, there's a lot of different reasons why that might happen, maybe for not even bad reasons, but there should have been some questions asked, like, well, why can't you be with your infant son? Why did you have to leave your infant in another country to come here? To give kind of a picture, this couple came from South Korea. There are many good jobs in South Korea. In fact, if someone offered me a job in South Korea, I think I would take it. It's just the country is so advanced and there's a lot of opportunity there. But they left, and they left their son there. And when the couple first came to our church, they were just very eager to serve, and it was a husband and a wife. And the wife was a professional piano player. And they played for major brands and companies. I don't know if I can say brands on this channel, but you know, they had sponsored deals with these people. And so they were really good at their craft. So they volunteered to become the church pianist. My mom saw the talent in this person. And once they started offering free piano lessons to not just our family, but to any family that had young kids, and only to young kids, specifically to young girls only, it kind of got a little weird. Actually, I have a friend that I've talked to recently. She said that the same deal was offered to her mother, and her mother actually said no because she didn't trust this person and she knew something was off. My mother, on the other hand, took and grabbed the first opportunity possible with, oh, it's free. This person had already sexually abused me in front of my mom before.
Oh my gosh.
So my mother knew that who this person was and what they were going to do. And this is where I want to be very, very careful.